It's Wednesday, July 23rd. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today on the show, we're talking mental health, which, look, it's not always an easy thing to do for many folks, but when it comes to connecting with people, theater, art, and humor can play a big role, and that's the conversation we're going to have today, the how. I want to give folks, listeners, a little content warning here, right? We'll be talking about suicide and loss, death by suicide, throughout the show. So just to let you know, and I'll give a couple of reminders because oftentimes with radio, someone can tune in right now and they've just missed it. So I'll mention it a few times. But the jumping off point for today, Perchance Theater is producing the play Every Brilliant Thing, written by the UK's Duncan Macmillan and Johnny Donahoe. Here in this province, it's a one-man show that's going to take place, and a story about the little things that can make life worth living. I've got a trailer of the British version, so take a listen to this.
The list began after her first attempt. A list of everything that was brilliant about the world. Everything that was worth living for. Number 1, ice cream. Number 2,
water fight.
we're going to the hospital.
Why?
Because that's where your mum is. And after a while, Dad said to me,
Your mother's done something stupid.
but I didn't know what that meant. 516,
Winning something.
number 12,
Dead.
996.
Really good oranges.
I'm making a list of everything that's brilliant about the world for my mum, and I'm going to give it to her. 1006. You know, if you live a full life and you get to the end of it without ever once feeling crushingly depressed, then you probably haven't been paying enough attention.
Here with me in studio, John Sheehan is here, actor in the play, stand-up comedian. Mm-hmm. Hello, sir. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
When you're acting in a one-man play, and then you hear the trailer, like from someone else, like does that kind of go into your head at all, or is it just kind of something that it's out there? You've got your thing as well. Like where does that play into it?
Yeah, I watched it before I started learning it. Anyway, I wanted to see the whole thing, and I watched Johnny Donahoe do it. Yeah. And I think I decided when I started and that I was going to do whatever the director wanted me to do, listen to the director, and it was
good call.
And through that, well, I figure, I trust her 100%. Yeah. And her vision is going to be exactly what I want it to be. Yeah. And it's going to be enough different from anything else that'll be my own. And I didn't have to worry about it. I put my trust in her.
When you first watched it, or whether it was the trailer or the play, the woman act itself, like what kind of hit you with it? What was your first kind of impression?
Well, the interaction with the audience is something different in this play because you feel comfortable, and the people that we've selected from the audience so far have all told me the same thing. They didn't feel pressured. They didn't feel like they were put on the spot. They're not talking about them or anything. It's and when watching it, of course, you think as a comic yourself, you start throwing in lines that you would have used. Yeah. In certain spots, especially the improv spots when you don't really know what's going to happen. And I've always enjoyed that in theater. So when it's a play that allows for it, really is up my alley.
Yeah, when I heard about it when we were lining the show up, and folks, we'll unpack this over the course of the next 51 minutes for the show. But when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, interaction with an audience, and it's about mental health, and it's about connection. All of it kind of really struck me as interesting. I'm going to bring Danielle Irvine into the discussion. Perchance Theater Artistic Director. Welcome back. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Adam.
All right. So just talking to John there about this play. And we heard the trailer. Mm-hmm. Just give us the selection process or the thought process from your end of thinking, let's greenlight this, let's do this.
Jill Kiley is a friend of mine and amazing director, and she said, you need to check out this play. I think it would work well at your theater. And I wasn't finished the play before I was on the phone to John Sheehan, calling him, saying,
get out.
Would you please take this job? Oh, yeah, I didn't even have it finished. As soon as I was in it, I was like, oh, John Sheehan needs to do this,
Why?
this play. Well, John, I go way back. I love him as an actor.
You've done Shakespeare before.
I've done Shakespeare.
Perchance,
together.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
lady here brought me into it in 2015 out of nowhere, basically. You know, and it was, yeah, and the feeling I got back then in 2015 when she called and talked to me about Much Ado About Nothing, and the trepidation I felt back then because I hadn't done Shakespeare in, 20 years before that almost. And that was only once. And knowing the quality of people that they were hiring, I was, but I did it and put my trust in the director at that time, Jeanette.
Lambert Montgomery.
Yeah, and then and then 10 years later, to get the same kind of call from Danielle in February, with another project after being away from theater now since 2017. I kind of, all right. But again, maybe 2 or 3 pages in, I said, yeah, this is me. This is for me. I want to do this.
All right, so you're not even through it.
Yeah.
You give him, you're like, I got to call him. If things start rolling, then what happens?
Well, then I called Allie, and I was like, Allie, do you want to direct the show? I've already cast it.
That's great.
but I don't normally do that, but it just felt like the right combination of people. And for me, that show is absolutely perfect for Perchance. Perchance is mostly classical theater, and classical theater does direct address. And this play is filled with direct address. And Perchance, part of our mission and mandate is about art in nature and wellness. And the show has that conversation throughout it. And setting it out in the woods and setting it, next to the ocean, and the audience can all see each other. You're not in a black box. I think this show works better here than it would, and I love the LSPU Hall. And I'm a lighting designer in my former life, so I love being inside with actual lights. But the sky is an amazing lighting, right? So when you're out there and you can see the people and they see you and you're in the story, it is an incredibly powerful experience. And I knew it was the right show for us. And
Yeah,
the
and
right team.
unlike most all theater shows, I'm interacting with people before we start. So I'm out mingling with the crowd, getting to know them, thinking who I'm going to have selected for certain bits, and I hand out numbers for the list that I'll be calling her throughout. And I'll meet people beforehand, and that's that's different than any other show. I'm usually backstage quaking.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
Here's what The Guardian wrote. So a year ago, it wrote, an uplifting play about depression. Duncan Macmillan's Every Brilliant Thing has become a global phenomenon since its Edinburgh Fringe debut 10 years ago, so 11 years now. It has been performed in 63 countries in and around 400 professional productions and is hugely popular with amateur companies. And then this talks about this is the trailer that I played at the beginning of the show, right? So that's 63 countries, 400 professional productions, hugely popular. Yet, this thing really hits chords with people around the world.
Yeah, it's on the West End in London now. We were really lucky to get the rights.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Chandra Kavanagh is here, CEO of the Canadian Mental Health Association, Newfoundland and Labrador. Welcome back to. How you doing?
Thanks so much.
You folks, you had a role with this too, right? Around, there's some volunteering, discussions, mental health with theater. Talk a little bit about your role around this play.
Absolutely. So Danielle and I have been in contact. I think we both share a lot of the values that are present in this play. So thinking about mental health, thinking about getting outside, thinking about the power of the arts when it comes to having and hosting these conversations. And I think one of the most exciting things was that we knew that this content could be difficult, could be triggering for people. And so one of the conversations we had was around helping to train the volunteers and the people who were involved, just in case there was a disclosure or an issue that came up so that they were comfortable. We do all sorts of training, including helping people with mental health first aid and helping people intervene when folks are having thoughts of suicide. And so we were able to, I think, take this really joyful production and help to make it safe for the community to participate in.
All right. And folks, as you listen to this, if you've got thoughts for us, or whether it's about this this play, if this one-man act, if you've seen it, if you know about it, or if there's a connection, whether it's the theater, TV show, movie perhaps, that's connected you with the mental health conversation, you can join the discussion. 709-722-7111. 1-800-563-8255. You can text us 709-327-8206. Emails thesignal@cbc.ca. So, John, as you're digging into this thing, just give us a bit. Like we've talked about the play, but just give us a bit more of the description of just the story and what it's about.
Well, the story is told from the narrator's perspective, and it starts off after his mom's first suicide attempt.
Yeah.
And he has this. He starts making this list of everything that's great. Everything, and it could be something small, it could be something big. Like it said in the preview, on water fights. Roller coasters, just things that are great and things that should remind you that life is pretty good. And so he started doing this list out to try to help his mom through her depression, and it goes throughout the course of his life and how much the list affects his life. And we get to see that maybe it wasn't just for his mom, maybe it was for him as well.
So then, as you thought about that, like how do you then internalize that for your touch and what you're going to do? Because one of the things when we talked about those, I think it was 63 countries, right? Like so, one of the beauties that I was reading about this play, it's that it can really be made to suit an individual audience, right? So what is happening in Newfoundland would be very different than a play in Quebec or Vancouver or in London's West End. What were some of the thoughts you had around localizing it, or just how you would put a spin on it?
I didn't really put a lot of thought into things like that. I thought from the start, I just started reading it as if I had wrote it.
Right.
And because it connected with me like that on that level. I started reading it as if I had wrote it, and what would I say here if something comes up, or if someone, you always have something in the back of your mind if something's going to go right or wrong. And that's what I think makes it so different, is each individual audience, different casts every night. And when you add that Newfoundland flavor into it, it is truly unique to us now.
And how does that work with the audience participation? Because Arlette Lazarenko on the show, when we were talking about it, Arlette's like, I love that. And I was like, I don't know about that because it kind of scares me. Yeah. How does it work? Because you mentioned already that you talk to folks beforehand.
Yeah.
And what's the interaction like?
Well, also, my background is, I'm a comic.
Yeah.
And so I size up audiences for a living. And
you can read a room.
Yeah, within 30 seconds, I think I know what I can get away with, what I can't get away with. And one little glance around the room, and I know who I'm going to pick out. Yeah. And I know who doesn't want to be picked out, and I won't do it. Yeah, I don't go at somebody in my stand-up act. I don't target the audience at all, unless someone starts something. In which case, we'll
different story. Then
that's a different story, And then you're getting into belligerent and people who didn't mean to be, and accidentally loud, and then people who target you. So I think I've learned to look at people and I can read them. Can I tell you a quick story about reading a gentleman?
I love quick stories.
So we were in Deer Lake, and myself and my wife Tracy, we'd only just been dating about 6 months, and she came to a show with me in Deer Lake, and there was a gentleman in the front row who only had one arm. Yeah. And I didn't mention it at all during the show. Why would I, right? Of course not. But afterwards, he came up to me, and she was standing there, and actually Dwight Ball was premier at the time. He was standing there too. And this guy came over and he said, "That was a great show." And I said, "Shag off, you never clap once." And her jaw dropped. But I looked at, and he roared. Yeah. And I knew that by the look in his eyes, the little spark in his eye, I knew what I could get away with this guy. And he had to buy me a drink. We had a great laugh, And I read him. I read him immediately. I knew I could get away with that. Yeah. And so he was telling 2 or 3 people afterwards at the bar what happened, right? So, yeah.
When I was living in Japan, it was always about people talking about reading the room and how important it is in the workplace. And like you get new folks from North America coming into this place where I was working, and they sometimes would not be able to read the room right away. So you'd be sitting down at meetings and like you're just sending knives to someone who is just like, stop talking, and they just, if you can't read the room, it can go another way.
Yeah, it really can. Yeah.
So, how's when is this thing official? Like, I know you've done a couple where are things at with this with the show?
It's open now.
Now.
We did do a number more previews than usual. We don't want to do one preview if at all, but because it relies on so much audience interaction,
we ran so much you can do in rehearsal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, with no one there. Yeah, right. Or fake people, it doesn't work.
Yeah. You can only hang a tennis ball and talk to it for so long.
So we did run more, and it was great because it taught us a lot
What did it teach you?
Well, just, what things are landing and also how things can land differently,
And also the fact that, we were able to rehearse and we were able to actually do previews in 2 different venues, the outside venue at the theater and the lovely inside venue, which is a chapel in the convent. And there's some irony there. And so, we got a chance to run the play with an audience in 2 different venues before officially opening, which was unusual and really nice.
So what was that first feeling, the first show with the audience like?
I wasn't sure because it became surreal at some point. At some point, I began to question whether or not this play actually existed in my head, because since from February till June when we started, it seemed like forever.
Yeah.
I was chomping at the bit to get at this thing, and now learning the 70-odd pages and the numbers was a challenge in and of itself.
70-odd pages, yeah.
Yeah. So when we finally got to in front of an audience, I was relaxed, and Ali had directed a beautiful show and had brought me places I didn't know I was capable of. I actually sing in this show, which is and Danielle know I've had arguments over the years. I've had battles with Jim Payne and other people, and Jody Richardson within an hour got me singing.
Jody's pretty talented. Pretty good.
CMHA was lucky enough to attend as audience members, so we were invited, our staff, our board, and so we were able to see one of those early performances, and it was that really showed us the power of this show. And one of the things that I love about the audience participation component is that it gets you thinking as well. Yeah. So the way the audience participates, as you heard in the clip, is they talk about these wonderful things. And so even if you're not a participant yourself, you find yourself thinking, well, what would I put on my list? And, I'm out in Conception Harbor and I'm thinking about the food fishery. And I'm like, I'm going to put the food fishery on my list. It's my favorite time of year.
It's how we would start every rehearsal. Myself and Ali and Sophia, stage manager, we start off every rehearsal by, saying what's the brilliant thing. And today I'm going to throw out Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Right. The announcement came of his passing yesterday.
Oh,
right? Yeah. A lot of people were talking about it in my circles. Yeah.
Yeah.
But put it on the list. And again, remind folks of the significance of this. So the food fishery, Ozzy Osbourne. Danielle, do you have something for the list here?
Living next to the ocean.
That's nice.
And remind folks what's the significance. Why are we talking about a list?
Well, just to remind us, even if the list comes in handy if you're having a bad day or maybe a bad moment. And you think, well, what was that? Oh, yeah, the ocean. That is, and that's going to cheer you up, whether it's minusculely or massively, And I think and you're going to start finding yourself thinking about other things automatically.
And when people are having thoughts of suicide, this is one of the things that we talk about is tethers, the thing that tethers you back to the world. Right. And we tend to have to think of those as, what about my family or these massive things? But often that's not the case. Often it's the taste of a good orange. It's that one little thing that makes you hold on just 1 hour, one day more.
If you use family as a tether or stuff, that's an emotional tether that's not, it's not terribly reliable. Something like living next to the ocean's always going to be there for you. You're always going to feel good about that.
Mm-hmm. So I love the small things. Yeah. Like that's been a big journey for me with this, is noticing the list. Like it's ice cream. It's, and the little things that make a day better. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important when we're talking about mental health. I've had struggles myself, and we know so many people in the arts have, and in life, in the big picture of the world. And so looking for those things that bring you back to some sort of center, keep you going. For me, it's also being out in nature.
Yeah.
And I go for a walk, and I come back, and I always feel better. Like my roommate recently said, "Do you need to go for a walk?" It's like, yes.
I do.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
actually,
definitely.
Absolutely right, I do.
And it's interesting, you think of the list as, well, in this context, we see the list develop as it gets older. And so, you see things on the list when he's 7. Then you see different things on the list when he's 15 or 17. And then, later on, you're getting like Nina Simone's voice, which you wouldn't have added when you were 7. No. You get water balloons at that point, and there's different things that hit you as you get older.
I mean, it just sounds so beautiful, and it's just such a lovely thing to get something beautiful in life each time, right? We talk about lists, but then to have a play like this, and then to have this acknowledgement, right? And Chandra, when I think about your role, where do you see, like you've talked a bit about it, but like a piece of art like this, a theater, in the bigger picture of what you're trying to do with Canadian Mental Health Association for Newfoundland and Labrador, when we talk about stigma, when we talk about education, understanding, like where does it all fit in, and what are your thoughts on it?
I think the arts are so tremendously important when it comes to starting and having these conversations. One of the things that we say all the time when we're talking about mental health, when we're talking about suicide prevention, is name it to tame it. So often it's people are keeping things inside, they're keeping it to themselves, they're not disclosing to the people in their lives. And so a piece of artistic work like this can start a million little conversations. So maybe you walk into that play not wanting to think about it, not wanting to talk about it, but hearing what's happening, hearing from the audience, that might be just the thing you need to prompt those conversations. And I think that that is tremendously powerful and in some cases life-saving.
Mm-hmm. Name it to tame it. That's beautiful. I feel, again, John, one of the reasons why I picked John, many reasons, was he's also very open about mental health in his life and his stand-up and on Facebook. And I think it's so important that we bring that conversation forward. And in a way like this, it's accessible and it is simple, like those lists, those tethers. And we invite the audience at the end of the show to add their own. So the list outside is growing and growing and growing every week. And that's really special too.
So doing this work, man, like I remember, and I double-checked it today, a pandemic post. You put something out about bad weather and reach out to folks. Mental health. And you're like, I don't normally do serious posts. I do very serious, right? And this post went out. And I've, yes, from other times of hearing you in media about and also seeing your stand-up comedy, as Danielle was just saying, like, it's part of your discussion. What do you think of this? Like, that is work, right? Talking about it can be hard to do.
Yeah.
And over years, it is work. What do you think about the productivity or the end result or where it pushes things and what you're putting out into the world?
This play, it's challenged me on a couple of different levels.
Yeah.
And as I hope everyone in the audience do, I started thinking about things that I would put on the list and things that are important to me. And as we worked through it, I saw different avenues that there's different ways this play helps different people.
Yeah.
It's targeted towards different people. We didn't change the soundtrack in it or anything. We kept it with the blues and soul. That for some reason the blues and the soul always kind of are synonymous with mental health. The blues always help you, for some reason, feel better.
Yeah, singing the blues, yet you're feeling better.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a mysterious thing. So the more I get into doing this play, the more it's helping my mental health.
Yeah.
And the rehearsal process was, I know going into it, I was like, oh man, I know I can be a lot. So I decided, right away, I got to know this thing before we start rehearsal. I got to know it, and I got to trust Allie and let her do her thing. And I think I did that. I think we didn't have any arguments about stuff. I took the notes I was given, and I really tried to leave the ego at the door, and that made it a much better product.
Allison Kelly is you were just talking to Allie there, the director. We couldn't make it because she's shooting, I think, today somewhere with out of cell phone range. But Arlette Lazarenko spoke with Allie earlier this morning, so we'll play some tape. It's only 3 minutes, 40 odd seconds, and then we'll chat about it. Go for it, Andy.
What was something that drew you to this play that worked for you?
I guess the first thing would be the way that he manages to use the theatrical form in terms of like a huge component of theater is about exploring relationships. And sometimes that can be particularly challenging when you have one person on stage. So it's like, who's the relationship with? And often the relationship is with the audience. And in this play, they break the fourth wall, which means that he communicates directly to the audience. So he's in relation to them the whole time. But in addition to that, he actually casts audience members to play the parts in his stories that he tells. It's not scary for any audience members who want to come. John that was a big part of the process is making sure we take really good care of the audience so that they always know what's being asked of them. And John spends the whole pre-show out with the audience, kind of getting to know them and chatting with them. And he gets a feel for who would be kind of comfortable getting up on stage with him and doing these kind of constructed improvisational moments that kind of appear as improv, but are like very, very structured and planned on our part. And then there's the subject matter, which I think is really important about mental health, about the kind of ripple effect of mental health, and how one person's mental health will impact another person's mental health, will impact another person's mental health, and then how we make space for other people's mental health while trying to take care of our own mental health, and the way that is a reciprocal relationship.
And I also want to ask you, I mean, the themes and the topics of the play are a pretty difficult conversation. I mean, we're talking about suicide, we're talking about loss. When it comes to, because I remember you mentioning the artist, the creator's responsibility to the audience. Tell me more about that thinking process for you.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like, audiences come to plays for a variety of reasons. One is certainly to be entertained, and another is potentially to be, given some sort of narrative challenge. Like, what do I learn about people based on the story that I just saw play out in front of me? And I feel like it's our job to make sure the audience comes in better than they left. And better doesn't mean necessarily happier, but it can mean more hopeful. It can mean a little more sensitive to someone else's experience. It could mean a little more aware of their own experience. It could mean more sure of like a path they want to take. There's a million kind of objectives that like you hope for the audience, which is like the reason we do this, is to give the audience an experience. And then if you can't articulate what that experience is, then you don't really know why you're doing the play, and the reason becomes vague. And in this play, I feel like the reason to do the play is to make the audience feel like you can overcome a mental health challenge, and that it is not easy. Like, a big thing about learning that you're going to do something is like admitting that it's going to be hard, not like, oh, I can handle this. It's like, okay, well, it's going to be hard, but that doesn't mean I can't do it. And I think my hope is that at the end of the play, people feel like, okay, I'm in this situation where I'm dealing with these feelings, but it's not going to be easy to overcome, but I think I'm capable of working to overcome them and finding some glimmers of joy, or at least like peace.
Allison Kelly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Director Allison Kelly there, talking about the play Every Brilliant Thing with associate producer Arlette Lazarenko. You're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. We're talking about that play. We've got John Sheehan here, the actor in the play, stand-up comedian. Danielle Irvine is here, Perchance Theater Artistic Director. And Chandra Kavanagh, CEO of the Canadian Mental Health Association, Newfoundland and Labrador. Folks, if you've got thoughts on this discussion or thoughts on connections between mental health and the arts and theater, give us a call, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. You can text us, 709-327-8206, or email us, thesignal@cbc.ca, like Erica did. And Erica says, just wanted to send a quick note to say I finally attended a show at Perchance Theater for the first time this weekend. I was blown away. I've not stopped recommending it since. I attended Tempting Providence, but fully intend to check out Every Brilliant Thing in the coming weeks, and I am so looking forward to it. If I had to recommend one thing for anyone to do in NL this summer, it would be to check out a show at Perchance. It's the perfect date. Dress for warm weather, bring a sweater, blanket, and cushion just in case, and buckle up. They have great snacks, incredible staff, and a beautiful space. Well, that's very nice of Erica to send that note in.
That is a well-written,
we
nice.
We need to get someone better to voice that thing in a nice way with some acting in the background, because that was, so thanks for sending that in, Erica. Well, I mean, thoughts on the note that Erica sent, if you want, or just, any thoughts on what we were just hearing?
I just want to say it's interesting. Ali brought up the audience, right? And we had the first time we had an audience there, a preview. I was standing outside as people were leaving, and it was amazing. So one person came up to me and said, and they were holding their face, and like, my face hurts from laughing so hard. And then literally right after them, another person comes up, and there were tears coming down their face. And I'm like, are you okay? They're like, I needed that cry so bad. Thank you so much. And I'm like, you just don't know where it's going to land with different people, but they all left happy. Like really happy and
connected sounding too, right?
Connected,
like you have those types of reaction. That is a deep kind of a connection for something that you don't always get.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, is that kind of connectedness and relationality and the responsibility that we have towards one another. I think it's great that Ali brought up that relational piece and that responsibility, because I think we often hear people lamenting the fact that we don't have communities the way we used to, lamenting the fact that we don't have a village. But everybody wants a village and nobody wants to be a villager. So one of the questions you asked earlier
Tossing
was...
some stuff out here now.
That is deep.
Yeah, so one of the questions you asked earlier was about, well, what about the work that you have to put in? And yeah, checking on your friends, that's work, trying to provide someone with hope when they're feeling down, that's work, but it's work that is worth doing, and that's important if we want to build this village and have the responsibility to be villagers. And I think that this play offers so many opportunities and reminders for that. So there's not only that you can think about your own list and what might be on it, but maybe who else out there, like the mother in the play, might need a list themselves or might need to hear a list. So I think that there are a lot of opportunities there to connect in a way that there isn't. It's not always naturally built into our communities anymore.
I like the fact, too, that, Danielle, like you're mentioning, folks crying, laughing. The fact that you can all be together at something and it's totally okay to have these vastly different kind of, even though everyone's leaving happy, like you're saying, but like still, like the reaction can be different. And guess what? How we internalize, that's okay. And we're all here together processing, but in our own ways, just connecting with something and taking something away from it.
Yeah,
What's
you
it like
never
for
know
you?
what is going on with anybody in their life at any given moment.
Yeah.
Why were they at the play this day? You don't know what the reasoning was. Maybe they had something else come up, but they had committed to coming out or something, and then they leave feeling a bit better about what was going on. It's interesting to see those different reactions.
Yeah, I'm just trying to picture like someone laughing through it, and then you look at someone else is weeping, and then someone else is just kind of looking at you, and you're like,
Everyone has their own story.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own story, and everyone's bringing something different, and there's I'm sure that some things in the show will jog memories for people, whether it's about their own family or just feelings that they have, and so that's going to hit different people in different ways, and that's the way this show is built.
And some of this discussion, folks, today, if you're just joining us, it does involve suicide and loss, and trigger warnings like one I just did. Remind us again, like why, Chandra, for like it's important to talk about these things and have folks understand, kind of not to keep them away or to say no, I don't want to, but it's just for an understanding.
Absolutely. So I love talking about trigger warnings because I think trigger warnings are vastly misunderstood, unfortunately. So a lot of times when somebody says, oh, well, there's a trigger warning about the content of this episode or the content of this play, what people mistake is they think that means, well, stay away. There's a trigger warning if you've been through anything like this, if this will affect you emotionally speaking, stay away from it, hide from it, don't engage. But in fact, I think trigger warnings empower people to take part. So what you're saying is, hey, look, we're going to be talking about this hard thing. Be ready, come out, engage with us. So one of the things I noticed, especially when I was teaching at the university level, was I would be encouraged to give trigger warnings in things like my syllabus. Okay, so this day we're going to be talking about this thing. And so someone who's experienced that thing, let's say we're talking about sexual violence, let's say we're talking about suicidality, then they can spend the week going, okay, I'm going to prepare myself for this. I'm going to be ready that this is what I'm going to talk about. And then they have an opportunity to make the most of it. So it's empowering people to participate instead of warning them away, which I think is the misunderstanding of trigger warnings.
Yeah, that word has also been widely misused and weaponized.
Co-opted, absolutely.
And it's...
I'm just picturing someone using their finger, like
I've
the
been
quote things.
people who call me
Snowflakes,
triggered.
trigger warnings. Everybody's triggered by everything these days. I think that's
you
a
didn't
fundamental.
trigger me, man. You made me mad.
I was like, what word's going to come out of his mouth here? One in radio, I shouldn't even say this out loud.
Close.
One in radio, John flies by. It's the second one that I worry about. I will regret that with 22 minutes left in the show. But yeah, like this is the world we live in. I love that, the learning side of it. Because I grew up in the radio land I grew up in as a professional, working on the morning show back when I worked with Anthony Germain. You'd put it on because you just think, in my head back then, in my early 30s, I'm like, oh, parents would just turn off the radio right now. As opposed to, this is so much better for me to hear this. It's like, hey, this is that could be, depending, a teachable moment. Or if we know something's coming up, or in life, it's something to prepare for, to then be ready to actually learn more and be part of.
Absolutely. And it encourages people to be part. And those people who have been traumatized can prepare themselves and be allowed to engage in the conversation instead of being totally unexpectedly triggered out of nowhere. And then you have to excuse yourself because you're totally overwhelmed. So you have this opportunity to prepare yourself and to say, yeah, I have something to say about this. I want to engage with this. And I can decide to do that on my own terms and feel invited in.
And the thing is, if it gets too much for anybody, the play, during the play, and if someone gets up to leave, I'm not going to call them out on that.
No.
I'm not going to do that, you know? This isn't a comedy club. I'm not going to, if someone is uncomfortable and they feel like they have to leave, by all means, you know, leave and maybe have, you know, go outside for a breather or talk to somebody out there.
And it just, hearing about, and like with the trailer and reading about the show, it with the list, it just, again, I'll say, like, it just sounds like such a beautiful piece of art and work that folks can really connect with. Like, when I think even through our conversation now, today, I've been thinking of things from my list, right? A buddy of mine, back when I was in the Naval Reserves years ago, a buddy of mine, now he was like always wanted to be highly motivated, but in his wallet, whenever he was down, he had a laminated rectangle of in his wallet, and it had a couple accomplishments. Well, I actually had a few, and he would look at it anytime he was sad. And I think the spirit of even that speaks to some of this, of like why whether it's an accomplishment or why you want to live, why life is worth living, and just to be able to think of the flavor of ice cream living next to the ocean, Ozzy Osbourne, that type of a thing in this world.
And I think going back to the email that was sent, you are reminded of that in every aspect of not only the play itself, but the theater. So I was just thinking about your comment about stepping outside. Well, you're already outside. And even if you step away from the theater, where are you stepping to? A stunning forest in a beautiful community next to the ocean. There are so many ways in which you are.
There's really a moment to take your breath and just.
Yes. Yeah. You're cradled, you're safe, you're in this incredible environment. And so I think that there are all of these ways in which your mental health is being supported through the content, but also through the environment itself. And it is very unique in Newfoundland and Labrador to be able to have an outdoor theater experience like that.
The weather can be quite interesting.
If that wind changes, right?
Yeah. It's always a few degrees hotter on the stage than it is in the audience.
Yeah.
You know?
We found when we were, we'll talk about climate change for a second. When we were working together, John and I, in Cupids in 2015, the audience were coming in parkas. That was the summer of June, of January.
Oh, was that the
July
summer
to
we
the end
arrested
of
Ryan
August.
Snodden or something? Way back.
Yeah.
And now, when we move to Conception Harbor, it might be 25 on the front lawn, but it can be as high as 40 on the stage.
Yeah.
And that's been a real journey for us. I mean, the summers have been getting hotter, but that it's an alarming heat, right?
Yeah.
So we've been trying to deal with that and keep our performers and our crew and our audience safe in that heat. Yeah.
It's something that's always on our mind, right?
I mean, especially for tourists. As Newfoundlanders, we're used to dealing with blazing heat. We're used to high temperatures. We could probably deal with it, right?
Yeah.
But for tourists coming in, this is why we got to buy a quilt.
Right. The weather here and the climate change that is happening. For mental health, what's it like these days for you thinking about it in this world we're living in? Like, because we're talking about this helpful piece of art that's been around for 11 years. But since that time, lots happened. And I don't know, like when I was growing up, I always liked to think things were getting better. And I don't know anymore.
I think there's been a step back.
Yeah.
We've allowed bullying and hate and violent reaction to be the norm.
Like men's mental health.
Yeah,
Look at
we've
what's
allowed
going on.
we've allowed it to be acceptable, to be nasty to people just because we're online, or people get upset about. People are very polarized. Everything is really polarized, and people can. I've seen so many examples of bullying online. It's just, and these are grown people too. These
it's nasty,
kids.
nasty,
it's really
nasty
nasty
stuff.
Yeah, I've been threatened on multiple occasions. No, it hasn't worked. But
no, I think but it's like the nasty stuff you see, and yet
it's been normalized.
I like trying to think about glass half full. Is that like how? Where either of you, like, where are you with that?
Yes, I think we are, incredibly concerned at the Canadian Mental Health Association. We're seeing a huge uptick in the experience of people who are experiencing loneliness, depression, anxiety. You mentioned men's mental health. We have a program now that's specifically targeting men's mental health because we see this epidemic happening. And I think that there are local, individualized reasons for that, but I think there are also these global reasons. We're in a, climate crisis, a political crisis, an environmental crisis. We're in an economic crisis. And I think that makes something like this all the more powerful because it is hyper local and hyper individualized in some ways. So it can feel so overwhelming when we're thinking about, oh my gosh, the politics of today or
this gets
the
us off the
bullying
freeway
that's
for a minute.
happening. Yeah, it takes you a moment to be able to say, okay, but there's still ice cream. So maybe I can't deal with all of that, but maybe what I can do is go back to my list, go back to the things that tether me, the things that inspire me, and not allow myself to be overcome. Because in lots of ways, if we do allow ourselves to be overcome, that's when we cease to take action. So it's when we can shore ourselves up and say, well, there are a few things in my life that tether me to this life that make me feel okay, and maybe I can take a few steps to do something to change or alter or address some of the bigger crises that I see, as opposed to just seeing that, being totally paralyzed by it, and then just doom scrolling.
Yeah.
I found, coming through the pandemic, we all struggled. It was really overwhelming. And coming into this play, which brings you right down to basics, and especially because the early parts of the list are from a 7-year-old's perspective.
Yeah. Water balloons, like John was saying,
balloons and ice cream and people falling down, right? It's like, and everybody laughs because we're all like, yeah, that is funny and that is sweet, and it brings us back to our child self, and at least that's my experience. Like, my experience watching the play has been come back to my child self, and then kind of going through, and it does make you go, what would I add to the list? Like, I've got a few things, but also on that list, I'm like, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. Yes, that's also brilliant, right?
And true.
And true.
One of the things on the list is the even-numbered Star Trek films. As anyone knows, those are the films, right? Those are the best films.
I did not know that was on the list. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, you think about it. Track number 7 on every great record.
Right? It's there.
Go home and
It's
check.
there. It's
Yeah.
there. Allie actually called me on that, and she said, "What's your favorite record?" I said, "Appetite for Destruction." What's number 7? I thought about it. I said, My Michelle. And she checked it out, and it was true.
Wow.
So, it is. Track number 7, always
number
a great
7.
tune.
Yeah.
I'm going to start checking that out more.
Yeah. And
Go ahead.
And it's important for us to, I think, because the show is so gentle and disarming, and it really does put things back in our hands. Like it as you say, it takes us away from the big, scary things happening in the world and goes right back to here, now, in the moment. And we talk about, experiences of mental health. Often if you're in a stressed out, and I'm not the professional, but just in my experience going to counseling, it's like, if I'm really stressed out, I'm either in the past or in the future. I'm not in the present. And something about,
Oh, that's so good.
it was something about being in a play anyway, but in this play in particular, it brings you right down into the present.
Right.
And you're right here in the moment. And that is, de-stressing. It puts you on your feet in the moment. And there's something about the fresh air does that as well. And being in nature does that. And that's part of being human. And as society has gotten bigger and cities have gotten bigger and we've become disconnected from nature, getting back to nature is part of how we ground as well. And that's something, they do forest bathing. More and more often people are encouraged to go out in the woods. I mean, that's something I've been blessed to have been raised with, from my grandfather. And I have, instinctually learned from him that getting out into nature is a great way for me to come back to the present. And it also lets my thoughts go free, and I can solve my problems when I'm out for a walk or up in the trees and by the ocean. And so this play, the experience of going to a play in general, brings you together into the village. It brings you into the moment. And this play in particular reminds us of our own personal bits that make us happy. It makes us go away and go, like ice cream or whatever, right?
So how do we balance for something like this, or also, John, from your stand-up side of things? There's the line for humor around difficult topics, and I say there's a line for a reason. You can be on one side of a line or another side of the line. That line for me or for Chandra, for you, for Danielle might be different. How do you work through a balance of this? And it's not about not offending people, but it's about when you're thinking of something as serious as like a play like this with mental health and talking about suicide, how do you just kind of think about that line for humor and where things might land? Because you talked earlier about reading the room, which is part of it, but are there any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's generally an audience thing. You really have to feel what the audience is. But I don't think in comedy there's very many lines to cross.
Yeah.
You know, and especially you can talk about pretty much anything if it's handled right.
Yeah.
And you can do things without offending people if it's handled right. I haven't had an issue. People talk about how comics can't say anything. I haven't had an issue in anything I've said on stage. So as far as lines go, you know, if I look out and I see someone and in the audience, it looks like they're in a really bad place right now, then if I got a light bit, like for stand-up, if I got a light bit, you know, I'll know if I got a bit coming up about a topic that could trigger that person, you know, whether it's an accident or, because I you know, dark humor I think it's essential in, for example, first responders.
Oh man, look! In journalism, we use it too, right?
Yeah,
and I used
absolutely.
to be in the Navy,
You got to.
but I get it.
Of course,
I'm all about it.
You know, so but I know, like, if I'm looking at this person is obviously going through a bit of a time, you know, then I'm going to skip that joke. You know, so I think you have to be aware of your audience.
Yeah, and the permissions and everything, and like you said, read
yeah.
the room.
Just because
try
you
to
can
understand
say it
something.
doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
He makes it sound easy, but let me tell you, I was concerned.
Yeah.
So when I heard, oh, it's a comedy about suicide, I thought, oh, good Lord. And we have done a lot of comedy-based events at CMHA, and I always grip the table every time, worrying, because I know that these things can be triggering for people, that there are a lot of concerns, that it can be difficult. But at the same time, I know how powerful it can be to bring that sense of comedy, that sense of levity. And there are some people who want to disclose and share what they're feeling and want that to be taken very seriously. And there are other people for whom that seriousness prevents them from talking about it, and they'd rather joke about it. It's more, it allows them access.
Yeah, it's
so I
disarming,
was, so I was kind of holding on to my seat, but I thought it was beautifully handled. It was funny, it's sweet, and there was never a moment where I looked around the audience going, oh no, somebody's going to be upset by this. So I think that takes a deft hand, both I think from you as a performer, from the director, from you as an artistic director, to decide, okay, you know, we're going to be careful about this, but we're also not going to just have a, you know, dour interventionist play, which I think would not speak to as many people as this play does.
Agreed. I think, you know, the writers must have taken a long time crafting it.
Yeah.
And it feels written by people who have had this lived experience, and it feels personal. And something about a really personal story told well is it actually resonates in a universal way.
Well,
and
I had a
that's
couple of
been
people ask if it
magic.
was my story. They asked if it was autobiographical.
That's wild, dog.
No.
Or like, that sounds like, as far as compliments, like to hear that after a
that's
performance,
nice.
that kind of is right up there.
It is, absolutely. You know, and yeah, it's important for me to know to people, you know, that obviously was written by, you know, Duncan McMillan and stuff. But yeah, no, that is a nice compliment to get that, and I think it's because things on the list that we can all relate to.
Yeah. For your past, in your work and life, talking about mental health, how much did that kind of, for your lived experience, help you with? Because you talked about, you know, you kind of looked at this thing like it was your own, like you'd written it, and obviously that's coming across because some people are asking you if it's yours. How much of that before bit played into this part of getting you ready for the performance?
How much, like stand up? How much?
Well, like just, thinking about mental health, talking about mental health, like, you know, that kind of a thing. Going like, yes, as a stand up, but then just as John Sheehan.
Well,
thinking
I
about
wasn't
mental health.
comfortable at first talking about
Yeah.
mental issues. I really wasn't.
Yeah.
And when Robin Williams passed, I was contacted a couple of times to talk about it, and I said no. And then I realized, you know, and a friend of mine pointed it out. I have a platform, whether it's not a large platform, but it's a platform.
Yeah.
And you know, if I can put out some things about myself out there that someone can relate to, then you know, if I can laugh about things, man, so can you.
Being a villager in the village.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, see, when you say that, you know, you're throwing me off because I'm from Harbour Grace. Villager is someone from Victoria, right?
Oh, sorry.
What the rock slingers?
But it is so powerful, I think, across the board when people decide to share that. So we see that all the time at work, where a comedian, a performer decides to share their own personal struggle, and someone feels really connected to that and really connected to their work for the first time. But we see it with doctors, lawyers, architects, anyone who is willing to share their own personal experience of having struggles with mental health. People feel connected to that. And so I think it's always so authentic and kind to the rest of the people in the world to be willing to share that side of yourself, because you'd be surprised how many people out there have been feeling like they need to hide that side of themselves. Right. And so I love to see people who are willing to bring that face to their work.
Well, I see it as, it's community leadership too. Like we talk about a village and everything else. Like this is leadership, whether it is from John Sheehan as a stand-up comic or the lawyer or whoever else that you were just talking about mentioning it. It is a look at me, like by speaking out, I feel it's giving other people permission to think, wait a minute, maybe I can kind of, and even if they don't want to talk too publicly, just to talk to someone. Mm-hmm. So like for the men's mental health thing, that side-by-side bit that they talk about, that's so important, like with your buddy, side-by-side, do an activity and just kind of maybe talk a bit and share and how healthy that could be in a world of
not
rabbit
enough
holes
people
and danger.
just have a game of catch anymore. You know
no,
what I mean?
right?
Have a game of
that?
catch, and you get, man, you're it's relaxing and it's a connection.
Well, shout out to Harbor Strong, our program. So they just did their mini golf tournament. So getting a bunch of men out to talk about mental health, but you don't have that pressure of, okay, we're all going to sit in a circle and we're going to disclose our mental health concerns.
Time. No, it's like, let's go do something.
Let's go. We'll play mini golf together. We'll joke around. It'll be competitive. Someone will win a trophy. And then we're going to spend 45 minutes talking about what's going on with us.
Absolutely.
And what do we want to see
changing. A classroom setting never worked out for me.
No, and I think for a lot of people it doesn't work out. And I think that this speaks back to some of the things we've been saying about the land and the environment. A lot of our programming and more with input from our Indigenous partners is becoming land-based because we're saying, that side-by-side walking up a trail together can be a lot more impactful when it comes to talking about your mental health than sitting in a sterile clinic across face-to-face with a mental health practitioner. Sometimes people need something different than that.
Well, a good buddy of mine in university, we would go out for some adult soda pops, and nowadays we go for runs together, and like we every week or two we go for a run at chatting speed, and we just talk about whatever's on the go, and I find it really nice, and it's just this side by side thing, and it's so much more healthier than when we were in our 20s, but it's a helpful thing. We got 2 minutes left.
Well, a buddy of mine, we go to lunch once a week. Yeah. Most weeks we go to lunch once a week, and we've known each other since elementary school. Yeah, and that's a connection I wouldn't trade for anything. It's great.
Yeah, and it's simple, but you're just talking and connecting with each other, and you just kind of know how each other's doing.
That's it,
right? And then if people want to connect with the play, where do they go? How do they connect with it?
www.perchancetheater.com, and our tickets are on sale there.
And how long is it going to run for?
Up until August 30th, I think, or August 29th.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And how many shows is it in total?
We're doing one a week.
One a week.
I think it's pretty much
starting.
one a week.
Yes, this is one a week from this Saturday on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's either Friday night or Saturday afternoon. So you have to check that.
Excellent. Get your rhythm going.
Yeah,
one
I
a
got to
week.
check
Here we
that
go.
too. So
yeah, double check it. It would be good if you do. If it's a one-man play and you're not sure on the schedule. And Chandra Kavanagh, anything else to last minute of the show? Anything to mention with the Canadian Mental Health Association, Newfoundland and Labrador, about what's upcoming or anything else in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. You can check us out at CMHA-NL.ca. And I would say go see this play. Take your friends, check on your friends, take them to see this play. It's incredibly powerful. It's super funny. It's beautiful. So take your opportunity.
Last bit. One more thing from each of your lists. I'll say lilacs in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's on my list.
Wales in St. Vincent.
Wales in St. Vincent.
Not being pregnant. I am heavily pregnant.
You're heavily pregnant right now.
6 weeks to go,
6
and
weeks.
I cannot wait to not be pregnant anymore.
John?
The reaction of the 3 dogs when I get home after a gig for a night. If I'm gone a couple of days, they lose their minds. And that's hard to not smile when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for this, folks.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. That is it for today's discussion. So thank you, John Sheehan. Thank you, Danielle Irvine. Thank you, Chandra Kavanagh, for that. I just got one late one from Arlette here. Waking up and knowing you have a few more hours to sleep. Yes, that is on brand for you, Arlette. Thank you for the input. And folks, thanks so much for listening. Anytime you want to get in touch with us, thoughts on the show, thesignal@cbc.ca. Looking ahead to tomorrow's show, we're talking all things Buena Vista Biennale 2025. Organizers, artists, what makes this kind of thing kind of special and the impacts it can have. That's tomorrow's show. Don't miss it. Cheers.